This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information that will expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
Come in, sit down, and hear my story. But listener, beware. This content may not be suitable for change control managers. This is the legend of Stevie McChessie. Stevie was a fresh-faced newcomer, ready for a challenge. He prepared this fateful night for months. The config scripts were written, checked, then rewritten. Then there were labs, oh, so many labs. At the stroke of midnight on All Hallows Eve, Stevie carefully entered the dark and ominous data center. Actually, it was an electronic badge control door, so it was more like boop, 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 ding. Stevie really should get his badge checked by security. Anyway, Stevie got right to work. The server rack shook, the floor tiles squeaked, and when he replaced one line card, an actual dust bunny had evolved into a dust jackrabbit and escaped into the night. Finally, he finished. However, he saw 42 missed calls from the NOC. After patiently listening to all of the problems, Stevie just grinned, then screamed, "Hey, what do you expect when I'm only allowed one maintenance window a year?" Happy Halloween, all, and enjoy this extra spooky episode of The Art of Network Engineering.
I think I just swapped out that switch this past week.
That was so good. We have a story like that.
Excellent. So
Shockingly
welcome
similar.
to a very spooky episode of The Art of Network Engineering. We've posted on Twitter looking for your scary stories, and we're gonna shout them out here this evening. But before we do that, Tim at Tim Bertino, how you doing, Tim?
I've got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and I'm wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Nice.
I'm good, AJ. What's going on, man?
Not too much. I don't have a costume. I tried to pass myself off as a Cisco TAC engineer because, that's scary and in line with our episode. But Andy gave me too much crap for that. And so I'm just going to, confess
Redacted.
that I did not prepare as well as I could have.
What about your flashlight? Put on your light on your face. It was very scary.
I don't know what the hell oh, there it is.
You lost the flashlight in 30 seconds?
Yep, that's me.
Ah, there you go. Woo, spooky.
Now I can't see. Excellent. And Girl Scout Lexi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I don't know any Girl Scout sayings.
No, you just say you can't talk about it.
5 years, so
Super secret Girl Scouts.
I can't. God damn it.
Oh,
that's only
bad.
Rocket stuff, not Girl Scout stuff. Don't mix them up. I know they're hard to keep.
Do you have the Rocket badge?
But yeah.
Ooh.
I'm good. I don't think so. No, I have a science badge, but I have a lot of badges.
What do you have to do to get the science
these.
badge?
Okay, but
you remember?
Look at the other side now.
That's impressive.
Look at
You're
all
legit.
of the badges. Yeah. I don't legitimately remember anything that went into.
Is that a name tag?
I'm sorry. It's a wait, where? Here, there's so many things on this vest.
I don't know. I thought, yeah. It looks awesome.
Oh, it says junior aide. Yeah, pretty cool. Some of these are vintage now because they came from.
That I won't name.
So I don't age myself anymore. But some of these are discontinued. Many of these are discontinued badges that are being sold on eBay now for a little bit of money. So I feel special in this vintage Girl Scout vest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm feeling great tonight because I know I'm vintage.
I was going to make an old joke, but I thought I better lay low.
Yep, you're in the clear.
Dan's not here, so you're kind of in the clear, Andy.
Yeah.
Speaking of Andy,
please.
What are you wearing, Andy?
What is
Can
he
you
not
describe
wearing?
it for listeners?
I am the.
Did you just do a little twirl? You did. You did.
I was trying to show you my cape. I have a cape. I am
He's
the
really
network
good at this.
outage. Excuse me. I am the network outage fairy.
Wait, what's on the
Ding.
back?
I don't know.
Ding,
I
network's
just
down.
yeah. This
Is there
I
an
think it was
image
Well, yeah,
on your
it's-
cape on the back?
Register trademark Marvel.
You turned around. Is
That's
that-
AJ.
Oh.
Nice save, AJ. Nice save.
I-
Sorry.
yeah.
Did I just get us in legal
So
trouble?
interestingly enough, how am I doing? I'm glad you asked. I'm doing great. I was having some fun at work yesterday, working on some content. Believe it or not, that's. I don't think product managers. I'm not your typical product manager. I'll tell you that. So I was working on some content yesterday that I'm excited about, and I was dressed up as a fairy godmother of sorts.
Is
So
that
it wasn't
content
exact.
Juniper internal only, or are we going to get to see this content?
I just sent it to leadership today. So if they decide to keep paying me, then they'll have to decide. I'm not sure. First, I'm trying to see if they're like, oh my god, what have we done? Why But if I get to stay and keep playing, then I guess they'll have to make some decisions. I mean, I would love. I'm doing a series, I think, and I would love it to be released. I think it would be really cool and useful and funny. But I just went in the basement, and the kids have their stuff, and this is my outfit. But work is going good, and I'm excited to be here for our spooky Halloween show. Yeah,
I love it. I'm excited. We got a lot of tweets and messages, DMs and emails. We got a lot of good stuff. Plus, we have some of our own. So I'm very excited to get into this.
We do.
Where should we start?
So I've got a list from Twitter. We can start there.
Let's do it.
So I took down some of these and gave them titles that I saw fit. See if they hold up.
By the way,
Yes, thank you. Helped
awesome
out a
Twitter
bunch.
people who sent in your stories. We thank you. We got a lot. We may not be able to get to all of them, but we will try our best.
And just fair
FYI.
warning, I'm reading these as they were written on Twitter. So no, these are not all first person me.
Are you going to put like a voice on, like a Vincent Price? If anybody knows who that is, kind
Kinda
of
put me on the spot, Andy.
think Michael Jackson Thriller. Remember Vincent Price? Oh, the ghouls should. I don't know. I forget what he said, but he's pretty creepy. I think you should. Well, I'll shut up, Tim. Go ahead. Sorry,
Andy, not that it's ever easy to take you seriously. It's exceptionally difficult this evening.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This first one is from Pat Allen over there with Breaking Down the Bytes podcast at Larry
nice.
Packin on
Yeah.
Twitter.
my boy Pat in PA.
Woo. That's right. That's right.
Hey, Pat.
You guys
I'm
are
going to
back
call
with the
this one
neighbors?
The Sound of Silence.
Ooh.
Pat writes, had dual-homed BGP neighbors to our, quote, meet me rooms for our hosted voice provider. Did a maintenance one night, bringing a second circuit into the fold and had no phone testers, blackholed our entire hosted voice platform for the next morning. Fun times. Have any of you ever had to do maintenance like that where
Ooh.
they want you to do it in the middle of the night so it won't mess with anybody, but the problem with that is that there's nobody there using it in the middle of the night.
My entire networking career, yes, has been gigantic,
Yep.
scary changes with no goddamn testers or validation. And then they want to yell at me the
What?
next day because what the hell happened? What was the root cause? We had no validators.
Hey,
Yeah.
I worked night
Mhm.
shift for 3 years. And so I was the one doing a lot of the maintenances that they
Yeah.
didn't want to happen during the day. But then, of course, if something went wrong, a lot of the time it would be, day shift comes in and they get really angry because, night shift broke something. But it's like we didn't have anyone to give
Yeah.
us feedback until everyone on the East
There's
Coast
so much
woke
that can
up.
break
So I
that
don't
isn't
know
like
what to tell
hard
you.
down, right? Like
Yeah,
you didn't
it's
get a
rough.
spectrum, you didn't get an alarm in your monitoring service, so it looked fine, right? But everything's broken. Whoopsie daisy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something got black hole. Whoopsies.
Something got black hole,
Sorry,
including
East
the alerts.
Coast. My bad.
Yeah. I've
You too?
had a
Okay.
few issues with
Yeah,
the East
you
Coast
do.
personally.
Nothing like taking the
Sorry.
eastern seaboard of the U.S.
Yeah.
down.
It's been, my biggest problems for some reason, my biggest personal failures and maintenances have been like largely affected mostly just the
When I was at an ISP, the Golf
So,
Channel was down for like 8 hours, or no, it was down for like 12 hours, and we couldn't figure out why. And we were told later it was like an $8 million outage and lost like ad revenue because
Ooh.
everything was IP based. Like their whole production stuff was,
Yikes.
yeah,
Wow.
good times.
Never
I mean, I
piss
didn't have to
off
pay
the
any of it.
golfers. All right, moving right along. I think we all know this guy. Ethan Banks of Packet Pushers at EC Banks on Twitter.
Ethan.
Yeah.
I'm calling this
Ethan.
one Opposites Attract. This one time, I made an Arista switch and a Cisco ASA be OSPF neighbors. I'm telling you, it was scary. Like really, really scary. When the adjacency would bounce randomly for fun, usually when everyone was looking. Does anybody have any of those crazy stories? I think AJ's got one where you're pairing routers that nobody would have ever thought they should probably pair together.
So I have a question. I have a question, and yes, I do have an experience with bouncing nonsense that we couldn't figure out. Why? I'm looking at myself on camera. It is hard to take me seriously. Why is it bad to hear those two switches up with the IEEE standard routing protocol?
It's a valid question.
Thank you.
It's a standard, but it's just a standard on paper. It's not like, at least it's my understanding that it's not like a technical standard, right. and each manufacturer's interpretation of the standard can sometimes cause problems.
Yeah,
that's why
I'm asking on purpose. I was kind of prodding you with that because I've heard that with the EVP and VXLAN stuff too. It is an IEEE standard, but I've read a lot of stuff. I think Packet Pushers even did a piece on it's not really interoperable between vendors yet. It's an IEEE standard. Like,
right?
Hello.
Yeah, if I've learned anything from like studying some of the things I have the past year or so, it's that the standard can exist, but how vendors implement it is
we
up to them.
Bouncing neighbors. I spent a week trying to figure out why my EIGRP neighbors are bouncing in my data center. I was building new connectivity, and I stand up a couple of things, and I asked everybody. I'm pounding my head again into the white papers. I'm opening cases, and it turns out I had an MTU mismatch. It's 9100, whatever it is in the data center, right? Everything's like jumbo. And I forgot, the new gear, I stood up. It was the default, whatever the hell it is, 1500. And they'll bounce like every 3 minutes. But a senior guy was like, did you check MTU? This is after a week of like smashing my head into the wall. I think I was on Twitter like anybody, and damn, MTU mismatch. I don't think of MTU when I think of, the things that have to match up in the protocol to get them to neighbor up, right? Like, because in my mind and the way they teach it, everything's 1500. Like, why would you touch MTU unless you're in an environment like a data center where it's never 1500?
I know in OSPF you need to have the MTU match, but I thought in EIGRP the MTU is a tiebreaker, not a requirement.
Man, I can lab it up and show you. You cannot get.
I believe you, but this is the point. Like, there's the standard, and then it's how the manufacturer implemented the standard, right? Like,
right.
Well, according to the standard, MTU is a tiebreaker, not a requirement.
When I stood it up in the maintenance window, I was happy and like, yeah, awesome, it looks good. And then I start checking some other stuff, and I turn around and I'm like, wait, did it just bounce? It was like every 3 minutes it would bounce. Comes up, you feel nice and happy about yourself.
I don't know about EIGRP, but at least with OSPF, that's not. If that happens, I don't think that's something you'll just see like in syslog. Like, you got to turn on a debug to see that. So it's not like necessarily apparent. You got to go digging for it.
Yep.
All right. Next one in the list from Jason Gintert at Bits in Flight on Twitter. We shall title this one Automatically Afraid.
This reminds me of like scary stories you used to read in the dark. You guys remember those books when we were kids?
I don't. I know Goosebumps.
They had like Goosebumps too. Yeah. The scary stories you read in the dark is like a short form Goosebumps. Like, they had a bunch of different stories.
I don't know that one. Granted, I just learned to read a couple weeks ago.
Oh, all right.
All right. Jason
That's
Gintert.
Not funny. Illiteracy is not funny. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I just said it. You're the one that laughed.
I'm apologizing.
22 years ago, I created a Perl/expect script that deleted the administrative account for 34 DSLAMs in 3 cities. It required a technician to perform a, quote, NINDI procedure on each box, which involved putting a jumper on the controller to reset the config. My first automation nightmare. I haven't had a similar experience on the automation side, but I'm sure many people can relate to that one time you click the button and then all of a sudden your cursor locked up and went away and you smash the keyboard trying to get it to come back, but it's already a lost cause.
Mm-hmm.
I think our show is haunted.
Yep. Lexi disappeared.
Lexi just got gobbled up by the internet outage goblins. So what about those D-slams, Tim? I'm sorry. It was hard to pay attention with Lexi being abducted by technology.
So basically how I'm reading this is Jason was trying to make a change and did it with a Perl script or an expect script, and basically not only cut his connectivity out, but essentially like bricked these devices, and somebody had to physically like console or put some sort of a jumper on the controller of these devices to get them reconfigured. So that could not
there's
have
a good
been,
example of why out of band
easy.
Is pretty helpful. Maybe they should have had a better out of band solution. I don't know. Shout out Open Gear.
This just episode is not sponsored by Open Gear.
It is not.
It could have been. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, I'm going to jump right into this next one because it's a doozy, and I'm probably going to mess it up here and there, but I had to read this one. This is from our buddy Pete Lumbus at Pete CCDE on Twitter.
I love Pete.
Pete wrote a damn novel. I'm not even sure how Twitter allowed this to happen, but congrats.
We got 45 minutes left, Tim, so
I'm impressed. I'm calling this one All Hallows Groundhog Day. All right, buckle up. Every 50 minutes, the customer would see outages for some destination prefixes. Not always the same prefixes, not always the same length of outage. We had many live troubleshooting sessions. We could see high CPU on the central processor and the line card. We couldn't figure out why that would cause packet loss, particularly such non-deterministic loss. I put it in the lab and could recreate every symptom down to the line card CPU spikes, but not the packet loss. Working with a buddy, he changed the test. Instead of pinging just a few endpoints in our 300,000 plus routes routing table, let's ping every endpoint. Bam! We achieved packet loss. Go to development, feeling proud AF. Show them our data. Devs tell us nothing is wrong. The high CPU is just reprogramming routes on a path change. That would be fine, but this is MPLS traffic engineering. Make before break is the motto. The new routes should be up and running before we cut over. The hardware platform devs were right. The high CPU was the routing updates, but that doesn't explain the loss. After talking to the MPLS TE devs, we learned there is no way for the hardware to tell the software, all right, I'm done. Go ahead and change shit now. Instead, what software does is push a hardware update and set a clock for 5 minutes. At that point, it just assumes everything is okay. The software changes the MPLS TE tunnel, hardware status be damned. What we realized is the TE tunnel was flipping over, but the hardware hasn't finished programming. In my lab tests, I was pinging prefixes that were programmed early. My buddy, by pinging all prefixes, exposed that something wasn't ready yet. Imagine 1 million route updates that happen in order. Pings to route 1 works immediately. When the MPLS TE tunnel updates, this is the first route and hardware, and it's ready when software updates. Ping to route 999,999 fail because software gives up and flips over, but hardware didn't program the route yet. How long is your outage? Quote, it depends. It's a factor of the speed of hardware, the prefix that's being installed, and where it falls in order of prefixes installed in hardware after the software timer pops. If you're lucky, it's sub-second. If you're not, it's 5+ seconds. In classic vendor fashion, what's the conclusion? Quote, expected behavior. Everyone loses, customer, tech engineer, humanity, but there was nothing that could be done. The hardware lacked the ability to send a notification to software that it was fully programmed. And this large ISP had pushed the hardware past its expected limit. To tie up loose ends, why was it 50 minutes? They had set a custom MPLS TE timer that recalculated paths every 50 minutes, triggering the change to cause the outage. Why not the same destination? Depends on the prefix programming order. Maybe I should have just started with this. The TLDR of this, the packet loss is coming from inside the router. New hardware was the only answer. It was a function of the line card ASIC. Only new silicon could have a callback method.
Wow. Man. That's crazy.
I have attention issues, man. I was lost. Yeah, packet loss is the last thing I heard you say.
Well, you can bring that up with Pete.
Pete in the chat wrote, Pete, why did you go bald so young? I don't know why he's yelling at himself, but yeah.
That's funny.
All right. This one is one that I think is definitely easy to happen to anybody, and where it shows that you really got to pay attention. So I am not pointing fault at this person, because this could have happened to anybody. At Stefan KWL on Twitter writes, and I'm calling this the access point to hell.
I love it.
I'm making I'm making that part up, so hopefully people don't get mad. Anyway, Stefan writes, I once took my wireless with hundreds of APs and thousands of connected clients down midday. The plan was to do a software upgrade. I did that many times already. Load new software on the controllers, preload the APs, and then set a timer for reboot. Loaded the software.
Hold on.
The AP.
Time out.
Yeah.
Time out. Hold on. We're trying. You said this could have been any of us, and that Stefan's a wonderful person. Did you just say he did a software upgrade in the middle of the day?
Well, hold on. With the wireless controller, he's prepping it. So you can technically have the code on the controller, push the code to the APs as a secondary image. I'm paraphrasing. I'm assuming
fine.
this is the kind of
fair
thing.
Enough. All right, I'll stand down.
I get what you're saying. It reads like he just went and hit reboot.
I did a reload in 10 at 1 in the afternoon, and something bad happened.
So there is the possibility to set, for example, quote, reboot at 4 a.m. So like you said, reload in 10, reload at 4 a.m.
Sure.
So I clicked on reboot, chose all the controllers, and thought, the time setting must be on the next page. But it wasn't. I was on the wrong page, so I selected all the controllers and clicked reboot and thought that there has to come something now, but it didn't. Instead, I saw the wireless connection for my laptop drop and thought, oh shit. Took around 20 minutes for all the controllers to reboot and the APs to rejoin. Of course, many users felt that. I do it at 4 a.m. normally because no one is on, and when I go to the office in the morning, I can check on things. But this way, my phone did not stop ringing.
Lesson is don't do code upgrades during the day. That's what I got out of that.
You say it with so much authority with that wand.
You know, is there any, Einstein said time is relative, right? Is there anything longer or more painful than waiting for that continuous ping to come back alive when you're rebooting?
You brought up Out of Band earlier.
Oh, God.
You have Out of Band. You can watch that shit in the console.
Yeah, you're right.
Do you guys have any of your own stories? I mean, I love hearing Tim tell the listener stories, but let's break it up a little bit. And I've got a couple stories.
One word. Mannequins.
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 That was not the word I was
Mannequins.
expecting you to use right now. All right, Tim, you got me hook, line, and sinker. Tell me about your mannequins.
Would you like me to tell more?
I think this is timely that you say mannequins. I'm watching Jeffrey Dahmer on Netflix, and I don't know if you've seen that yet.
Didn't he date neat people? What's the mannequin tie in there?
Oh, well, you'd have to watch this.
I'd have to watch.
Know.
Okay,
I can tell
you.
you later, though. I don't want to give it away on the show.
I don't want nightmares.
Anyway, Tim, what's your mannequin story?
So there I was in the basement of an educational facility.
Oh.
Of an educational facility, and is training for these classes. You work on mannequins, so you're not testing on real people.
Like a
See, Healthier's got it all figured out. They never test in production.
Oh.
And I had to do some work down there, and it's almost like an interrogation room where you've got the room where the mannequin is in the bed, and then you got the pane of glass and like a little control room back there so you can watch.
Are these mannequins or cadavers?
What's that?
Is this a hospital?
Mannequins.
College. Training to become healthcare workers. It wasn't real bodies.
Thank you.
So I'm sitting there in that little control room, and I can't really focus on what I'm doing because you can see them through the glass. So I'm like, every 2 seconds, I'm just looking up because I'm waiting for one of these damn things to just pop up out of bed.
It's come through the glass.
And there was nobody else really there. It was probably summer when school was out of session. And yeah, I was like down there by myself, and yeah, not cool. But yeah, that's the mannequin story. What's up with you, AJ?
So we did a switch upgrade at a company that I worked at. And completely unrelated to the switch upgrade. So with the switch upgrade, we got more ports in the data center, which is part of the reason why we're doing the upgrade. And so as a result, we wanted to add some network devices or additional devices to the network so we could monitor them and use them to get remote access. One of them was our UPS. We wanted to be able to monitor it, see its health, whatever. So we go to put it on the network. I at the time I was the IT manager. My sysadmin heads upstairs. He announces he's going to do this thing, and then he heads upstairs to go do it. And about 5-10 minutes later, the network goes hard down, and it's just like, okay, wasn't expecting that. So I head on upstairs to the server room, open the server room door. And about that time, things started to come back up in some form or fashion. But I walk into the server room, and my poor sysadmin is literally on the floor in front of the server rack, clutching his chest, like recovering. And it's like, dude, are you okay? What happened?
Shit.
So he tried to go install a console cable into this particular brand of UPS. And apparently they have 2 different styles of console cable. And if you use the wrong one, it causes the whole thing to shut down. Like shut down hard. Like even though there's a fully charged good battery in there, completely shuts down the UPS. So it shut down our entire server rack, including all of our switches.
Ouch.
The worst part is that when everything came back up, there was this weird problem that our virtual servers had establishing network connectivity with our new switches. It wasn't a problem with the new switches. The new switches were working just fine. We troubleshot that issue for close to a day, and it ended up being a firmware problem on the server hardware and the way that it dealt with virtual MAC addresses. Because the virtual servers would start to come back on the network, but then they would drop off. And then they'd start to come back on the network, and then they would drop off. And we just could not figure out what was going on. We troubleshot the issue with TAC, with the vendor that we were working with, and they said, you're learning MAC addresses, you've got connectivity, layers 1 through 3 are working as designed. This is another vendor's issue. And it finally, in the end, was a firmware update that we had to do in the servers, and it corrected the issue. So, like, a simple, I'm going to go put this device on the network turns into network hard down for like almost a day.
I hope that UPS vendor I hope he at least got a free console cable out of it correctly.
I don't think we ever did. But it was crazy. Like there was no, like if you had both of those console cables side by side, there is no obvious way to tell which one is which. It's like magnifying glass, scrutinizing. Oh, this is version 2. Don't plug that into a version 1 device, or you'll be screwed.
Hey A1 fans, still getting calls at 3 a.m.? Rest easy knowing that you've deployed OpenGear. They're the market leader, the gold standard. Their award-winning network resilience platform gives you always-on access on day one, every day, and during an outage. Sure, there's alternatives, but when it comes to your environment, wouldn't you prefer the real thing, the OG? 18 years in business, 7 best-in-class products, 1 comprehensive platform. What more could you need? There's plenty of reasons to choose OpenGear as your smart out-of-band vendor. What reason will you choose? Schedule a demo today to see how they stack up. Accept no limitations. Trust your network to the market leader.
I got a couple stories.
Let's hear
I'm
it.
listening.
Let's hear it, Fairy Tale Andy.
I worked at a NOC for 2 years, and I think everyone should work in a NOC for at least 6 months.
Yes.
Because it's some of the scariest shit in networking that exists, I think. Your whole job is getting broken stuff fixed. And if you work in a big place like I did, it's big and scary and complicated. And I didn't know what I was doing. So yes, NOCs are terrifying. My story though isn't really a NOC, but every day at the NOC is scary. So if anybody out there's worked at a NOC, you know where I'm coming from. I know Lex did. My first outage, and these will be quick. To give a little context, it was my first quote unquote real network engineering job. I worked at the NOC for 2 years. I got this job in fintech, and I was going to build stuff, not just watch Spectrum all day and dispatch people out to fix fiber cuts. It was a little more than that, but you get it. So I had no idea what I was doing in change windows. Everything they gave me was scary. The training that I did up until that point and the break fix, I learned a lot. But when you're deploying new services line by line in the CLI, that was just way scary for me. So my first big outage there, I left the super secure NOC job. I took this really risky contracting job. I had a 6-month-old at home. We just got married, bought a house. And I took down one of the biggest New York City stock exchange trading houses one night because I didn't understand tunnel timers and overriding policies, and that it would take 20-something hours for that 24-hour default tunnel timer policy to expire to then realize I overrode a policy that was needed. But what was so scary about it was, the next morning I'm in there and I sat across from the NOC and they're all, what's going on? And then they're calling me, hey man, you were the last one in there. I'm like, yo, that was like a day ago. Like how did it break today? Like, what do you know what I mean? Like, wasn't me, bro. Right. So, long and short of it, they realized it was me and they pull me in. I'm like, oh, bloody hell. And, my boss at the time, he's a super laid back guy, Mike. He's like, hey, man, don't worry about it. It's fine. Go home, have dinner. We got your back, And then at 5:30, I'm sitting down with my wife and that same laid back guy calls back and he's like, hey, man, just to let you know, turns out their CEO gossed with our CEO and he called him directly while the guy was sitting down for dinner with his family. And yeah, they're pretty pissed and upset and they might be coming to get you, but I'm off tomorrow. You'll be fine. Just don't worry about it. Tell the truth. And so this is all hand to God true. So I go in the next morning and I'm like, this is it, man. Like, I'm gonna have to go home, look at my baby, tell my wife, like, I tried, I went for it, guys. I went for it. I'm going to be a network engineer. Woo. And I broke the stock exchange. And, fortunately, the leadership there had my back and they protected me. And thank God, because they didn't have to. And I was a contractor and, really good. Oh,
wow. Yeah, I didn't realize you were a contractor.
Oh, I was a contractor there for like a couple of months with no clue what I was doing. And they knew it. And people there, like the culture there, they were tenured. People were around a long time. And a lot of the people are like, why is this dude here? He doesn't know anything. But, they were giving me a shot, right? Like, You need somebody to give you a shot. And the people who knew were like, oh, he's fine. He's learning. He's great. but some of the other people are like, what, dude, what is this dude's problem? The other one was what turned out to be a 28-hour maintenance window that I worked nonstop. The long and short of it, we had quarterly maintenance windows. So 4 times a year, we could break really big stuff. And this was at FinTech again. And, this isn't like an office or a couple of Wi-Fi things. Or like, we're talking like the main data center that serves like 85% of the company's customers and applications, right? So like,
which is like 85% of the country.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like everybody's using this stuff, right? So, the federal government's moving money around with the services, right? So anyway, it was a quarterly maintenance window. You're supposed to break stuff. And my job was to migrate from the old 6509 distribution. It was layer 3 core distribution layer and then access in the WAN, pretty big WAN. So we were going from 6509s to 9504s, and that went pretty good, I thought. Simultaneously, our firewall folks were upgrading from checkpoints to Palos. So probably a little too much happening in the same window because invariably, I flew to Georgia for this because you had to be on site because it was a big, scary thing. And I do my maintenance window and, I go back to the hotel at like, I don't know, 4 or 5 in the morning. It was like an all-night thing, all hands on deck, all of us around a table, right? And the phone just starts ringing at like 5:30 in the morning, and it just never stopped ringing until, whatever the hell it was. I remember 28 hours sticking out, and it was just call after call after call of people saying connectivity wasn't working. And then we'd have to parse like, well, was it the firewall change? Was it? And each and every one of them wound up being problems with the firewall and the rule, blah, 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 right? Zones. 28 hours nonstop. Not as much scary as just freaking exhausting and a marathon of mental, torture, right? But they're the 2 big ones that stand out when I think of like, just network pain, spooky Halloween, theme nonsense, man. No mannequins that I was afraid were going to hop up and get me, but
hey,
endless hours. Yeah, endless hours of pain. What's going on in this chat over here?
I do have one more that I want to read from Twitter because this one is, I think it's bonkers.
Let's hear it.
This is from Marek Isalski or at Maznu on Twitter. I'm calling this sabotage. While on a project abroad in a foreign country, a, quote, sudden emergency in the client's other data center needed a rush trip across town. Quote, oh, you won't need your laptop with you. It'll be safe here in the office. Our guys will drive you over there now. Nothing of consequence at the other data center, a knocked cable in a comms room in a very secure facility. I was driven back. Yes, dear reader, someone had tampered with my laptop, but that's why I'd brought a burner laptop. Still got the drive for the memories. In the jump host, the burner had access to just in case there had been an emergency needing connectivity back to prod. Long gone, drive shredded, and IP address space returned to RIPE NCC. That's crazy. You're on a job for a customer, and they lure you away to screw with your laptop.
That's crazy.
Mm.
That is crazy. I've not heard of that. Wonder what
Granted, AJ, you, I don't think you've worked overseas. You went to Montana once.
Well, it was Wyoming.
Wyoming. God damn it.
And I have worked overseas, but it was London.
Okay.
And it was at a time during this country's history where I don't know how to say it politely.
Oh boy,
but
you better.
I can't imagine we were targets at that time. But anyway, no, I've never felt like I've been a target when I was traveling. I couldn't imagine like being targeted for some reason. So I wonder, did they have access to some super secrets?
I don't even know. I have so many questions.
Yeah. So many follow-up questions that they probably can't tell us.
Yeah.
You know what's spooky?
Your wig.
How dare you?
Got a point.
And there's a reminder that we have a YouTube channel. If you want to see Andy's wig, make sure you go onto our YouTube channel, subscribe, hit that bell button to get notified of all of Andy's future wig usage.
Bring your tickets to the gun show. Hey.
Boy, you're going to want your money back.
You know what's
Anyway,
spooky is when
what's
I'm
spooky?
shopping, I'm on Amazon shopping for something, and then I go other places and there's ads for that all over the place. That's spooky. This isn't a privacy show, but there's some
Yes.
spooky, weird tracking going on all over the place.
I have one of those stories, and there's a reason I think it's really spooky. So it's actually a Halloween story.
Ooh.
So a couple years ago, we were taking the kids trick or treating, and we were walking, and there was some people that had out in front of their house. They had a really nice, cool, modern looking stainless steel fire pit thing. So I walk up, my phone's in my pocket. I walk up to these people, and I never say the word fire pit. None of that. Just walk up and say, hey, that's really cool. That's all I really said. That's really cool. I'm almost positive I never even said the word fire pit. We get home from trick-or-treating. I pick up my phone. I'm just scrolling through Facebook, and I had never seen one of these things before I saw it at these folks' house. Scrolling through Facebook, and a sponsored ad is one of these fucking things. And I'm like, how did that even happen?
Creepy.
Yeah.
I used to work at a Verizon frame. So that's where all of the copper lines come in from all the houses and then come to a switch. A clo fabric, if you will. Crossbars. Yes, clo.
Oh.
I didn't know it at the time. That's what I was working on. But and it was against federal law to listen to any of the calls. So I had a butt set, and each pair on there you could, boop and listen to whatever calls were happening. So
sure.
that was against federal law, and that was a no-no, and you could get in a lot of trouble for that. And I'm amazed. All right now it's like old man on a soapbox. I didn't mean to get here, but I'm amazed that we live in the kind of world technologically where all of our devices are watching, listening, recording all the time, and then being leveraged by, databases and AI so that they can sell it to like advertisers. I mean, Tim, the fact that you didn't say fire pit,
it's creepy, man.
Was the microphone, was an app on your phone listening, heard crackling? You said you liked it.
Now you got me real freaked out.
Well, no, I don't know, right? I don't know. I used to give more spookiness, right? It seems like we need some content. So go down this road for a second. I used to give everybody a hard time about the digital assistants. My buddy had I can't say it because there's one sitting here, but one of the vendors' smart assistants that you say their name and it lights up and wants to do things for you. I used to be like, dude, do you have any idea? Like, they are listening to every single word you say. They are recording it all forever. Like, it's, oh no, man, only the keyword, blah, blah, blah. And I remember looking at him and I go, dude, how do you think it knows you said its name? It has to listen to everything you're saying. And he kind of looked at me like, I like playing music on it. That was it. But we've accepted, right? The we're giving up, what am I saying? Like, I don't know if it's free. We're giving up privacy for convenience, right? And
yeah,
I'm a hypocrite because they gave me a free one when I bought something on Amazon, and it sits here. And I installed it because it has a clock on it, which I find helpful at work, tracking my time. But it's ridiculous that, this thing is listening to everything I say, recording it. And the way I know that is there's been a lot of cases where the police subpoena this company for the audio records of what happened so that they could use it as evidence in a crime, right? So like, they're listening to everything and recording it. It wasn't like, hey, personal assistant, something bad's happening. It was recorded. They came in and they're like, were there any listening devices in there that we can subpoena, So and I even have a security device and, like security system in my house, which is cloud-based. And there's plenty of news out there. My buddy's even a cop. Like, they don't have to ask me for it. They tell you they do when you sign up for it. Oh, nobody can take your footage without your consent. The police would reach out if they needed some doorbell footage or something. And my buddy who's a cop's like, nah, man, we just, if we get a judge to sign on off, we get whatever we want. So anyway, creepy factor, right? Like, every device that we pay a lot of money for and put in our homes, in our cars, in our kids' bedrooms are listening to everything all the time. And we're cool with it because, I can play SpongeBob without touching a remote. I guess that's okay. I don't know, right? Yeah, and I have them. I'm not trying to sound like a hypocrite, but so creepy. Your fire pit story just got me on a tangent.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Any more, Tim?
I've got an email. An email in from
read the email. I was just opening up email. Go for it.
All right. So this one's sent in by Charlie. He's got an Outage horror story. I don't have a fancy name for it like Tim did. I'm sorry. But Charlie writes that he had just gotten home from work around 4 p.m. on Friday of Memorial Day weekend. And he's in a very popular New England vacation spot. He was a network engineer for a local hospital when he got a call from his manager informing him of a possible outage/emergency. So after fighting his way through touristy traffic to get back to the hospital and troubleshooting on the phone the entire way over, they find out that the soup modules on a pair of VFS enabled 6509s was experiencing some sort of memory leak. The chassis acted as a collapse core for the entire hospital and many of the outpatient buildings. Traffic was effectively unable to forward through the core. The impact, the staff in the emergency center weren't capable of switching over to a downtime procedure, which is just writing everything down on pen and paper during any sort of electrical or network outage. So they called Code Black, which, and this is like, Tim says, well, because I'm sure he knows exactly what that means. But for those of you that don't know, Code Black is basically, the hospital is shut down. The emergency room is not accepting patients. So this is like one of the busiest emergency centers in New England. And they outright stopped accepting new emergency patients that were on the way, like already on the way to the hospital. They had to turn around and go to another hospital 90 minutes further away. So if you called 911, asked for emergency services, they were experiencing up to 3 hours wait time. Thankfully, they were able to get the network back online and everything fixed. And during that time, there was no reported injury, no loss of life, nothing like that. So nothing severe happened during this outage. But wow, what a story. In the end, they found a temporary workaround by enabling distributed Ceph on the chassis to offload the fib and the adjacency tables from the route processor to the line cards. And that saved them until they were able to do a code upgrade later on. Crazy story. Thanks for sharing.
Was this at a hospital, you said?
At a hospital.
Wow, man. I would love some Tim stories. We'll never get them from him. But, working in a healthcare environment, I would imagine that, when that stuff goes down, right? Like, I guess there's lives on the line. Not a good day.
Tim,
there's literally lives on the line.
I've had this conversation with you, Tim. I've worked at a lot of places, and a lot of people get upset when stuff goes down. And my barometer for success is like, well, nobody died, right? Like, but you can't say that. I don't envy you.
I will say it's tough in healthcare because a lot of industries are adopting, that mentality. I don't want to call it DevOpsy, but that DevOpsy mentality of, move fast and break stuff, just small intermittent changes all the time, just constantly moving forward. And no matter how appealing that is, healthcare isn't always the right environment for that.
Right.
For obvious reasons. So yeah, it's difficult.
It's funny. I think I have blocked out a lot of my PTSD, trauma, scary network stuff. Like, honestly, I spent a decade doing it and so many things went wrong. And most of the time I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And then any day they were going to walk me out the door. And it was just so traumatic and scary all the time.
Yeah.
I think my mind has just blocked a lot of it out. Like when we talked about this episode the other day, I tried to think of stuff and I could only pull up those two. And I know that there's dozens, if not hundreds of either things I've broken or things that I've been involved with, that broke. I mean, going back to the knock, somebody hits a big bundle of fiber and, I don't know, a gigantic region goes down, and having your director, who's this big, scary person in charge, just up your gig constantly. What's going on? And when are they there? And why aren't they there? And why aren't the splicing group? And I'm like, yo, man, like I'm on the bridge. There's 130 people on. We're waiting for the splicing crew. I don't know what you want me to do. But like her job was
faster, Andy.
Right. But like a lot of that happened at the knock. Like her job was to tighten the screws on us to think she needed to motivate us. But like,
yeah,
we have a ticket. Yeah. There's 800 cell towers down. I get it. Like it's bad. I don't know what to tell you. Like I can't go. And I think even once, I don't think she liked me because I think once I'd had it and I'm like, do you want me to drive over there and like learn how to splice? Like, what do you want me to do? You know what I mean?
I mean, I understand why she might think you're being mean about it, but if she's putting that much pressure on you and you're literally in a position where you can't do anything about it, like that's a fair response in my opinion.
What are you going to do with a fiber cut that's 3,000 miles away from you?
Yeah,
sitting at a knock, right? Like I dispatched fiber. I don't know what to tell you.
Yep.
What's the mean time to repair? I don't know. They're not there yet. They haven't even surveyed the damage. I mean, it was just a whole job, right? You go home. How was your day? Oh, great. I got yelled at all day for stuff I didn't do.
For stuff I didn't do, yeah.
And it was awesome.
Yeah, that was one thing we didn't really touch on in this that are probably some of the scariest parts of the scary stories are getting told, hey, you need to get on this conference bridge. And those are so hard to manage because you just, by nature, you want to put your head down and just figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really difficult to do when 17 people are asking you what the status is.
Can you guys do that? Because I've never been, I was trained. The guy who, senior to me was like, dude, I just put my headset down. I shut him out. I said, I'll be right back. I'll be back in a couple minutes. I need some. So I can't have people yelling in my ear and me cognitively work through a problem. I can't.
I started that way. I feel like our process from our leadership has gotten a lot better. So they've taken the approach of, which I had my doubts about at first. They took the approach of when something like this happens, we want all technical people on the call so they can collaborate, including vendors. So if we have tax support, something, we're sending them a link to join our local call. And I was a little apprehensive to it because I'm like, I'm going to have a hard time troubleshooting and making progress if I've got a bunch of people asking me questions that may or may not be relevant. I mean, it could be somebody who is, a manager of another department asking just off the wall question that derails you, and then you got to try to get back on track. But really, I mean, we had done it a few times and it actually worked out pretty well. We had the one thing that I will say though is if you don't want people to derail you with questions, don't be silent.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know about you guys, but there are times where, especially if I'm sitting by myself and I'm troubleshooting a problem, what am I doing? I'm probably talking to myself, just talking it out,
Right.
Oh, it's just me. Okay. Never mind. But if you're on those calls, just be vocal about what it is you're doing. Because if you're constantly going through what you're doing and just kind of talking it out, people are going to be less likely to interrupt you with a question and just throw you completely off. So yeah, again, I was apprehensive to that kind of style, but it's worked well.
I don't think there's anything scarier than a large outage and a large bridge that you have to get on. And like people higher up the food chain than you ever wanted to have know your name are on there. And they're all, they're looking to you. And I mean, it takes a while, right? We were very manual. We weren't automated. And I just got to go through and try to figure it out. Like I have a process and it's in the middle of the night, right? You get called in the middle of the night. It's 1:45 in the morning. You're exhausted. You don't even know your name. Like, wait, what? Like, I can't even get in the VPN. I'm so tired. And they want to know like why the building's burning down and why, all the customers hate us. Like, man,
I tell you, the one thing that I think is actually scarier than having to get on that bridge is, and this is back in the, when you're in the office days in the cubes, when all of a sudden there's a network issue and people just start standing up and looking around and they know who to look for. And you have 17 people looking at you like, what's the matter? Like, I am as clueless as you right now. Give me 2 minutes. Those are, oh man, just chills thinking about some of those.
Yeah. I'm not jealous of you guys. I don't think I've ever had to sit on a major bridge. I will say that, when I was troubleshooting issues, even if it was on a call, I would establish, I will give you updates as and when they are available. Like, don't sit here and keep asking me. If I have information to give you, I will give it to you. If it looks like it's going to be like an extended duration thing, then I'll establish further boundaries. I will provide an update to you every 15 minutes, and I'll set a timer on my phone at 15 minutes. I will provide you updates at the top of the hour, whatever the case might be. But I always try to establish, like, I need time. I can't do this with you staring at me, standing in the doorway. Know that I'm working on it. Know that my team is working on it, and we will get you updates as soon as information is available. And that's
Eddie,
that's
Eddie in the chat has a good point. He says maybe we should delve into a little bit more what we're talking about. So for people that may not know, so what we're really discussing right here is when there's a major issue, there's a large downtime, a large outage, and a lot of organizations will request a conference bridge. Now, hopefully it's not a large enough outage to where you can't even get on the damn phone. But they'll ask for this conference bridge, which is really just a bunch of people on a phone call, on a meeting, teleconference, whatever. And you're giving status updates, you're doing collaboration and troubleshooting, all that kind of stuff. If it's not managed well, it can be some of the most stressful situations of your life. And even when it is managed well, if it's a large enough issue, it's still pretty rough. But yeah, that's what we're talking about. These big calls, getting all the right people on the right call to try to fix a major outage.
And for me, there's two levels of outages. So there's one that just something broke and like, oh, that sucks. Let's all band together and figure it out. And then there's the one where I'm in a maintenance window and I'm pushing buttons and I'm making changes and all hell breaks loose. Because that's a totally different level of passive aggressive anger at the engineer when
it's one thing to get called into a problem. It's one thing to get called into a problem. It's another thing to cause the problem.
Yeah, right. You are the problem. So when I was talking earlier,
to which I just go back and say, hey, my change request is in. It said I may cause an outage.
Yeah, well, right, Tim, and that's. So you reminded me. I mean, I used to, the line I used to love telling executives who would try to come down on us, like, listen, man, we're not plugging in toasters here. You know what I mean? This stuff is complicated. It's complex. There's a ton of technical debt. Like, it's a miracle any of this works, and we step on landmines when we touch stuff. And we're doing the best we can. And we had a process, plenty of change management and reviews and blah, 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 right? But you can go through all that and step on a bug. Like, there's just whatever, right? There's some things you can't,
I love that analogy. You've used that before. Hey, we're not plugging in toasters here. And people that don't know, it's just, hey, if somebody's
people talk to you like it's simple, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, what happened? Like, how did this happen? Huh?
I think
let me
it's
explain
easy.
BGP to you.
You know what I mean?
I think it's easy for people outside of IT to see, hey, you're in a technical role. You have engineer in your title or senior engineer in your title. Nothing should be new to you. You should know all of this. There should never be any problems. And I think that's a pretty big misconception.
Yeah, that 6509 to 9504 distribution layer that I was telling you about, we did it in our 3 major data centers. And along with that, we were implementing a lot of traffic control that was never there. You never knew where your traffic was going to be. They just threw a bunch of redundancy and bandwidth at it and figured, I guess it'll work. But my second year there, we hired this brilliant guy, Carl, our architect, and he's like, guys, we need to, if somebody calls you at 1:30 in the morning, you need to know that all your AT&T traffic should be on the A side of this router. Because if it's not, now you know where to look, right? And we never knew any of that. So anyway, as we were implementing all these traffic controls so that we could, the traffic would do what you wanted to do, not just you just pray and hope that things miraculously work out on their own. It took us probably 8 weeks. So we would have these big maintenance windows on Sunday night, like 5-hour maintenance windows. And every Sunday for 2 months, we brought the company's entire WAN down for like an hour and a half because something weird was happening. I forget what it was. It was one of the weird, there were 2 things coming together at once that took us a really long time to find out. It was some technical debt, and then it was something weird in the new 9504 iOS stuff that like just, a couple things lined up. But every time we would try to do this change to steer traffic, the entire company WAN would go down. Now, 3:00 in the morning on a Sunday shouldn't be a big deal. But man, we called a lot of hell on Monday, and it's 2 weeks of calls and an RCA that you have to write up. And like, well, why did this happen? Like, guys, you've been buying other companies and absorbing their data centers for 20 years and just leaving everything alone and just stitching it all together with duct tape. And now we're trying to clean it up. And, every other time we touch it, it explodes. Right. But it was just scary. Every night was scary. Right. We finally got it cleaned up and it was great. Right. And then our stuff stopped breaking as much and we knew where traffic should be. But you go into a place with, a lot of problems and you're there to like help and clean it up, man. Every time you touch the network, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's a scary position to be in.
Well, this has been a fun episode. It was really fun in part that we got to share stories of all of our listeners. We do appreciate everybody following along, sharing your scary stories with us and letting us share those scary stories. We didn't have to sign any NDAs, which is I was really happy about. I thought we weren't going to be able to share any of these stories at all, but we made it happen. And we made it happen through the support of listeners like you. If you want to continue to support what we do here at the Art of Network Engineering podcast, the best way you can do that is to go to iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show and give us a rating, leave a comment if you feel so inclined. All of that stuff really helps the show. You can also go to our YouTube channel, leave some comments, subscribe, smash that bell button to get notified of all of our future episodes, because all of those metrics really help this little show. Thank you so much for your support and everything we do here. We'll see you next week on another episode of the Art of Network Engineering podcast.
Boo.
Hey y'all, this is Lexi. If you vibe with what you heard us talking about today, we'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcatcher. Also, go ahead and hit that bell icon to make sure you're notified of all our future episodes right when they come out. If you want to hear what we're talking about when we're not on the podcast, you can totally follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Art of NetEng. That's Art of NetEng. You can also find a bunch more info about us and the podcast at artofnetworkengineering.com. Thanks for listening.